Hi, and welcome to Deep Leadership. I'm your host, John Rennie. Today on the podcast, my guest is John O'Connor. John is a former U.S. Army officer and president of Career Pro. He helps people find a mission for their lives and their careers. Today, John and I talk about life after the COVID crisis. Many people are rethinking their lives and their careers as a result of the COVID crisis, and John and I will be talking about what you should be doing right now. This is a powerful episode that everyone should listen to, even if you weren't affected by the crisis. So, are you ready to dive in? Let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Leadership. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former Cold War submarine officer who spent 20 plus years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Are you ready for some real-world actionable advice from John as well as his expert guests?
I'm ready.
The show starts right now.
Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by John O'Connor. John is a former U.S. Army officer and president of Career Pro. For the past 30 years, he's been coaching executives and helping people in their career transitions. I met John when I was making a major career change many years ago, and he helped me step up my game in terms of networking and personal branding. With this COVID pandemic having a deep impact on the job market, I wanted to get him on the show to talk about how to manage your career during this crisis. I'm excited to get his expert advice and share it with you. So, John, welcome.
John, thank you. It'll be easy to remember your name on this podcast.
Yes, for the first time, I don't have to write it down. So that's perfect. So tell us about Career Pro and what do you do? What is it that you do to help executives, people in career transitions and companies? What's your role in the world?
Our role is to get people back to work in a way, I think, and really the deeper mission of, I think, is helping people find more of a mission for their career. And it was, of course, a joy working with you when you were working through some of these issues. So I appreciate you even saying that because I get to be a cheerleader part-time. I get to work with companies at some low moments when people get laid off, or they're trying to realign talent, as they say, and people in the midst of career change and questions and concerns. And, it's always a pandemic and recession in the minds of many people who are in transition, but we have to look at it with the glass half full, and that this can be a great time of change, as it was for you, that could improve your work life and in turn improve your life. And so that's what's really important to us, and that's why I keep doing this. I can't believe I've done it for this long, but at some point I'll figure out what I want to do when I grow up. But I think this is probably it.
Yeah, I think it is now at this point. As you look at what's happening in the world, we're in the midst of this COVID crisis. What's happening in the job market right now? What are you seeing?
It's a realignment for sure. I just have this belief that we're going to come back so strong, and that business will change as it did after 9/11, as it did after the Great Recession, as it did after these times when there's been major interruptions to the work and the life of people at work. Probably none so universal as this, and it's shaken a lot of people, and certain industries have been, at least at the moment we're talking, John, pretty devastated. But this has really tested a lot of people and a lot of companies. And unfortunately, some of the smaller businesses and the real small ones that are fighting have had the toughest time. So, we have to all pull together. It seems like a cliche, but there's a level of esprit de corps right now that, as you know from your military background, sometimes under pressure, you see the best come out of people. And I'm trying to look for those things that are happening, encourage people to follow leaders, which you're real focused on, and leaders who lead companies who are doing the right thing right now. So out of that smoke and fire will be forged, I think, possibly new opportunities. And if you don't look at it that way, get around people who do, because
Mm.
That's about the only way you can face a crisis, I think, with a lot of energy. And, you could come out of this better, tougher, and be on to something that you would define better as success for your life.
Mm. That's really good. I think, a lot of people are, facing, a downsizing at this point, right? So they might have been laid off during this time, or they might have, their business is shut down, and they're looking for, you know, a chance to recalibrate, right? Come back in the market. So what advice would you give to somebody that maybe lost their job during this crisis, and what should they be doing right now?
Well, I would bring up three things that I've written about before, but I think these hold true. And it's, anytime you're in a situation, I've heard you talk, and I love your stories. In fact, we did one this week about the most. I don't want to do your story here, John, but if there was a fire on a submarine, I mean, that is just like you said, that was the worst, most intense situation. And I know from having been around the military, having been around, a son with special needs who's had seizures and so on, I feel that both in my personal life, professional life, and what I've seen in people who are in an intense situation, first responders, that you must not panic, but improve yourself during this time. And it's a real fight, because if you're under stress, it's hard to kind of get objective and enjoy all these free trainings and podcasts and things like that. But that's what I've done. That's what a lot of the leaders that I've seen that are fighting through this are doing. They're improving themselves. And I think number two, real quickly, let this be a lesson to you if you don't go back to work. Now, some people are furloughed and laid off and they're stressed, and that's more of an emergency situation, at least that they feel. But you have got to make a kind of a commitment right now in your soul or with someone to say, I'm going to create career options in the future that hopefully could crisis-proof me if this continues to happen, or if this happens again. If possible, do that. Some people don't. They ride that company, they get that job, and it's like, look, I don't want to keep reading and keep improving because I've kind of just worked so hard to get here. Why do I have to keep clawing and fighting and getting ahead? And I think you should. And then one more, I do think you should have an entrepreneurial point of view and build either a side hustle or some alternatives that you could pivot to in the future. And I think that's something that is hard to do when you're working, let's say 40 to 60 hours a week. You got a family, you got to take care of kids and so on, but create those career alternatives. And those are some of the things that I think about, and I think people should really give consideration to.
I like what you said about improving yourself, and this, even if you didn't lose your job during this crisis, this should be a wake-up call to everybody that what you have is not permanent, right? And I'll give you my situation. When I was working in corporate America, I thought, well, I'm a high-performing individual. I'm going to be here forever if I want to. Any career decision I have, it will be on my own. And then suddenly I found myself out of work. And the point is that even if you think that the point is not to get too comfortable in any career that you're in, because overnight something can happen that could immediately shift you out of your role and you're into a career transition, not by your own means. And so I think I like what you talked about, the idea of always constantly improving and working on yourself, and that should be a never-ending process. Is that right?
Never-ending process. And right now, another good thing that's come out of this is training, learning has come home to you. There's so many things to take advantage of just right now, and I think this will go on in the future, that you could be reading, learning, improving, refining, forging new skills, and that's required to me to climb in corporate America and nonprofit world, et cetera, that you would do that. But boy, now more than ever, you have to have that as part of your spirit, as a part of your, at least weekly or monthly activities, whether it's suggested by your company or not. This has to be pretty much, you need to book that in. You need to make sure that you have this. Don't wait for an external source or your job to provide that for you. But I'm hoping there's a big comeback. I really do. But if we get comfortable again, don't forget some of these lessons I think we're talking about.
I think it's important. Yeah. Well, I think you touched on self-improvement, but the two things that you helped me on when I was doing my career transition, I think are really important as well, is the idea of personal branding and also networking and having a very large network and not letting that network get stale where the only time you call is when you have a problem or a need, right? You want to have those connection points and people that you know that potentially know somebody else, right? Because a lot of times you end up landing jobs based on not so much who you know, but who they know. And it's those connection points that help you kind of break into organizations, right?
Absolutely right. And you were such a good student being a guy who had accomplished so much. There are some people that are like, yeah, and don't really listen or willing to improve. I think that's one of the things that I look for and ask potential clients or people that are getting laid off, like, are you at a point, are you coachable? Do you have that mindset of, changing something, even if you've been on this trajectory that didn't need to build out a new network? You did, and you did it right. You also began branding and writing outside of the corporation. It was really interesting to see that development in someone who had, quote, already made it in some people's eyes in the military and in corporate life. But I just love seeing that. And even if they don't become an author or a speaker or a trainer like you, some of that personal brand building development, will go into improving yourself, your career, your communication skills. And really, this is the time to fight to get those things and to better yourself there. And everyone can do this. This isn't reserved for certain income levels or certain levels of status. This is for everyone. And there's no excuse now not to build that into your career. That's for sure.
At least get your LinkedIn page right?
At least do that. And I just want to mention, because you talked about building your network, and I want to deepen that, because the leaders in a corporation, you talk about that, and I have to watch it, how they build relationships with their employees and how they nurture them and bring them along. And I remember talking to you earlier this week, and I said, well, how do you handle a layoff or letting someone go? And you said you're a 4 strikes and you're out person, not a 3 strikes and you're out. I mean, and that it's a predictable path if someone's not a mission fit for your organization. And I think you want to kind of force yourself to build relationships, really deeper relationships than just that other contact. Like you said, not just for some kind of quick reciprocation, but something that's deeper. You follow a leader in your field, you have a conversation. I know even on your podcast, you're reaching out to talented people like myself, of course, but really in all seriousness, you're reaching out because I bet you learn a little something and sharpen your skills when you talk to people from different disciplines. And I've heard that from most of the successful entrepreneurs that I've ever talked to and been able to be blessed to coach and go through this, is that they're open to new ideas. They're always curious.
I think that's important. I mean, I'm 52 right now, and I'm still learning. In fact, I tell people that I seem like I know less and less the older I get, and the more I run businesses, I realize I don't know things, and it's scary to know that I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm still learning. And I think we always will be learning. And I think having a curious mindset, being willing to seek out experts, and being, teachable, learnable, being curious and actually pick up. And I think everybody brings a unique perspective to a story. And it's just like having a diverse workforce, right? Where you're getting all that, that interesting background that can bring it to help solve problems in your business. It's the same thing with your life. If you expose yourself to experts in all different disciplines, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to become a better leader through it.
Who's this? I couldn't agree with that more. One of the interesting things is that a few little career lessons that I found out and now use to coach people is sometimes what you'll find is the people who have that are, quote, the most successful in terms of title, status, et cetera. A lot of those folks are very approachable, are willing to talk, will take time to talk with you. And I think a lot of times when I reach out, I try to reach out to people sometimes who will stretch me beyond my comfort zone. And I think if we get used to that kind of mindset in our career path, even if it's taken a hit right now, that you reach out and try and learn from, connect to, or have a conversation with someone you admire in your field, someone who's done something that you'd like to do. And I think you have to have that kind of innocent goal setting, aspirational kind of mindset to get through this time. And if you don't have it, get around people who have that desire, who haven't finished learning, who haven't said, I'm done reading. The last book I read was in college. I hope I never have to read one again. Well, at least read something on your phone or do audiobooks. But wow, what a time. And I've seen a lot of leaders, John, do more of this outreach right now, giving away insights, ideas, their time. And I think the spirit of that right now is a good thing that's coming out of this. So it's time to connect, build a mini friendship, nurture it. And you're right. A lot of the jobs in terms of futuristic stuff that I see out there in the employment world are going to come because of word of mouth, referral. And it isn't just going to be, put it on the job boards, get 1,000 applications, sift through them with the applicant tracking system and, bring some bodies in here. I think they're going to be more discerning about who they hire. And I think if you build in some of these attitudes that we're talking about and this work ethic and this vision, you're going to have a better chance of getting hired. And relationships are key.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Deep Leadership is brought to you by Strikeforce Energy. Strikeforce Energy is a veteran-owned company founded by a Navy SEAL, and their products are all made in the USA. Strikeforce Energy is a liquid flavor pack that you can add into any beverage. It has 0 calories, 0 carbs, and 0 sugar. Each pack contains 80 milligrams of caffeine. Strikeforce Energy is offering a discount to all the listeners of Deep Leadership. Go to strikeforceenergy.com and enter the discount code I have the watch, one word, for a 20% discount on every order. Deep Leadership is also brought to you by my Amazon best-selling book, I Have the Watch, Becoming a Leader Worth Following. This book is filled with 23 short stories on how you can become a more effective leader. It's super easy to read and most people finish it in less than 2 hours. Go to ihavethewatch.com and click the large orange button for signed copies. Enter the discount code I Have the Watch, one word, at checkout for 20% off your order, and domestic shipping is always free. One thing you touched on, I like that too. You said as you make connections, don't do it as a transactional thing. And one of the things as a CEO, right? I have a CEO title on LinkedIn. That means it's like a light for every bug out there in the universe, right? So people are attracted to you as a CEO and they want to sell you things, right? So they want to sell me things. And that's okay. Because I'm a salesman too, right? I'm trying to sell. So I'm okay with that. But the problem is I have so many people want to connect with me because they want to sell me something. And so they say, I noticed your profile and I'd like to connect with you. And you're like, okay. And you connect. And then first thing is a sales pitch. Like we provide, pumps for these kind of things. And, what can we do to help you? And I was like, why don't we build a relationship first before you go for the ask? So as you were building relationships with leaders or people of influence or people you want to learn from, build that relationship. And I like someone once said that you should ever go into every relationship like you want to have that relationship for 30 years. And wouldn't it be different if we did that?
Well, it would be different. And it's so hard to suppress that urge to try and, here's really why I want to talk to you. But if you can do it and have a civil conversation, ask about some content. I saw, John, that your company was just listed in the Wilson newspaper for building your company in an economic opportunity zone. I'd just like to know more about that. Would you be willing to spend some time and talk to us about what you've done in North Carolina to do that? And I've asked you that question, and you know what you did? You said, why don't you invite some of your folks up to see what we're doing? And that would have taken, we're going to take you up on that, by the way. That would have taken you time away from your business, time away from your people, so to speak, but you're proud of your company. You would be willing to do it. And it would expose a lot of my clients to these new ideas and new opportunities. And who knows, that's if that insight and information could say to one of those folks, wow, there could be opportunities in these economic zones that I wasn't aware of. And I bet some of those companies that are growing there are hiring. And then, by the way, if you were, what a great place that they've been, they've visited, they've checked out, and they're, I think, more ready to network with you. You've just got to have that curiosity and go keep chasing wisdom and information. And that's probably going to be even more the key to getting hired and staying employed in up and down crisis or non-crisis times.
I agree. That's great. So let's switch gears a little bit. I have a lot of listeners who are veterans, and so they have a military background. You have a military background as well. So a couple questions. One is, what makes veterans such a good hire, especially in times of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity? Why should hiring managers be looking for veterans, and how can veterans present themselves properly to be able to be attracted to, or attractive to corporate America?
Wow, that is a whole podcast right there. But real quickly, most veterans that are coming out didn't get in the military to be famous or to get rich. And I'm not saying those are bad desires, because there's a whole lot of people that they're pretty focused on that, and they built big companies, and great for them. But they did to serve a higher purpose, whatever that was in their mind. They did it because they believed in this crazy concept of America. They did it because, I don't know, they'd want to get on a submarine and travel around in dangerous waters like you did. Or they did it because, they wanted to pay for school or have a GI Bill or whatever it is. But, that desire to serve, I think, is the spirit you need in your company. And of course, you talk a lot about it in your books, but I just think that they're usually drug-free. They've been under a lot of pressure in different situations. They've had to not just multitask, but train in different expertises and roles. They didn't just go out to be an infantryman or whatever and learn how to put together a M16 and take it apart. They've had to lead others. They've had to work in diverse work cultures, and they've had to get along with people from every walk of life. And they've probably had international exposure and experience. So, boy, you can't go wrong with having that kind of mindset in your company.
Yeah, I agree. I hire a lot of veterans, so I figured I would tee up one easy for you, because I know you really have talked about that a lot, and have really helped a lot of veterans in their transition. So,
sometimes veterans, they hear a lot of slogans out there that you should hire a veteran and do this. And I think making your company attractive to veterans and veterans need to, in some ways do a better job of asking questions, being curious too. Sometimes they're coming out, and they have a little chip in their shoulder, like, I don't want to have to go through this and get hired. And we've got to have that dialogue, but because how a lot of times the people who have hired veterans, John, it's like, you don't have to show up a half hour early for work. You're not going to have a problem usually. It's like, you can come in about 5 or 10 minutes before or something like that. So a lot of them just, they can't wait to get out there and serve again. And if you create that culture in your company and team dynamic, they'll love it, you'll love it, and they'll really want to bring people together.
No, that's good. That's excellent. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about, you work with a lot of different businesses, and you see a lot of leaders. You're really well connected. You have a lot of resources. So maybe have you seen some leaders that have done a really good job managing their companies during this time? And then, or maybe, some examples of what they should be doing, or what have you seen that's working?
Well, I right before this pandemic, I wrote and published an article in Forbes. I think it's something like a modest CEO proposal. And it was just about, essentially, it wasn't about the government imposing reasons why you should share your wealth or share your knowledge or share, your great income. If not, just all CEOs don't make immense amounts of money, as you know, when you fight for a business and it's small. But if you have great wealth and great resources, I think it's kind of your duty to not necessarily just reward people and, have a socialistic company necessary, but, bring them closer. So I've been a magnet during this time, John, for companies that have done, and CEOs especially, have done a great job of giving back to their employees to not just, if possible, furlough them, but pay them a wage. I've heard from, who is the Duke recruit down in Atlanta. I mean, the CEO of, I don't want to start naming restaurants, but one guy I heard on the radio had a windfall in the stock market when it went down. He invested, it went way up. He made $1.6 million. He said, boy, that was a good feeling. He said, but you know what a better feeling was? The 300 people or whatever at his company, he just chopped it up and he just gave that back to them, which I think it ended up being about $9,000 per person. And he was interviewed on TV, and it wasn't just for PR. He was just like, wow, this was a windfall. I wasn't expecting it. I'm giving it back. So if being a servant leader is the key. And, part of that is not just giving away money, but, just looking out for people at this tough time. And I think that is on display like never before. And I think the companies that have had that mindset are going to have the most loyal workforce. You're going to attract talent that you can't believe. And I think you've got the best chance to grow coming out of this. Those who have hoarded and tried to keep it for themselves and, gotten rid of people just to make that next quarterly bottom line and their stock rise, maybe they'll keep succeeding, but I think that word's going to get out. So what an extraordinary time if you're blessed to share that blessing with others and to have that mindset.
I like that. I know, when I talk about I have the watch, what I'm talking about is in the Navy, when we had the watch, we were responsible for both the mission and the people. And we tend to sometimes as leaders focus on the mission when the crisis happens and we forget about the people. Or there are some cases where we focus on people and we forget the mission, and that's not good either. So I think the best leaders, and as you're pointing out, are focusing on the mission and the people. How can you manage both and doing that in an effective way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I didn't want to, for the Duke fans out there, it's, Zion down there and Mark Cuban and the Texas Roadhouse guy. And, it's just, there's so many stories right now about, good things that are happening with companies and sharing and helping someone out and doing the extra and not having to have a undercover boss kind of moment to do this stuff. This is the undercover boss moment. People are suffering in a lot of cases. And if possible, if you can build that esprit de corps right now, I think you're going to have a comeback like you've never seen for a lot of businesses.
No, that's great. Excellent. So let me ask this question. I've been asking it to all my guests. In your opinion, what are some characteristics of a great leader?
Oh, man. John, I got your book right here next to me.
Good. Let's see.
That
page 5.
I think you've got to be a great orchestra director. You don't have to be everything to everyone, but I think if you know how to get the best out of the violin section and the trumpet section and the oboes and so on, but I think it's really knowing people's strengths and helping them. I'm a big believer in helping people find those strengths, build toward those, and not try to get people who may not be destined to be in certain roles to be good enough in those roles. I mean, I think that having that kind of mindset where you are the orchestra director, you're trying to get the best out of your people. And, that comes with the things that you talk about, innovation, creativity. And I think that if you attract to you who you are, not necessarily what you want. And I think leaders who know that showing compassion, showing innovative mindset, rewarding people for finding new ways to do things that are better ways to do things, and not just giving that to the people with titles and so on. I think that's going to create the kind of atmosphere you want in a company. So, I'm big on those concepts. And I would say, again, I want to turn to your book on that subject. But I think at the end of the day, too, when that leader goes home, and I think the ones that I've talked to say, I sleep well at night because I did the right thing. I helped my folks. We're building something more than just, a widget factory or whatever. There's something important to this, and it has to do at the end of the day with our clients, our stakeholders, and our people. And take care of your own people first. Put on your own mask first, as you talk about. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to be a lot better for that whole organization.
Oh, that's great. That's really powerful. Well, that's great. So John, how can people connect with you and find out more about Career Pro, your company, and what you do?
Appreciate that. They can go to careerproinc.com, careerproinc.com. But check out some of our podcasts and some of my articles on our website. And, if there's a question or you can like or follow us, that's great. But just any way we can be of an encouragement to you, we will be. And we look forward to any conversations that we have with companies that are doing outplacement, people in a serious transition that need great, compassionate, and caring, high-touch help. That's what we're all about. So, connect with us at Career Pro Inc. on Twitter. And of course, we're all on LinkedIn, aren't we, these days? Mm-hmm. So, John, it's just a pleasure to talk to you. I've learned from you, and I continue to learn. And like you said before, it's like, I think the longer you get in your career and the older you get, the more humble you are about realizing that if someone calls you an expert, are you really? You really feel like you're almost just beginning the journey. And I think that's what I love about having conversations with people who stretch me and encourage me. And you do that. And I thank you for this time.
Oh, I thank you, John. Thank you. And your insights are very helpful, and especially in these tough times. And, leaders, as you listen through this, and I don't know where you're at with your career, but all of this is valuable advice that you just got from John. And in terms of, building up your network, having those connections, working on yourself personally, learning, and continuing to make yourself better. I like what he talked about is being entrepreneurial. Make sure you have some other income streams so that you're not just, just have one source of income being your current job. Make sure you're working on personal branding, all these things, because I think what COVID showed us all is that things can change quickly overnight, and your comfort zone can be quickly removed. And I think we all have to be prepared, regardless of where we're at in our career, that it may, change tomorrow, and we have to make sure that we're prepared, right?
You're right. And you can only control a couple things yourself, is your actions and your attitude. And that's tough enough. So if you work on that, like you said, get that mask on, I think people are going to be better. But thanks for the opportunity to address your audience, John.
Okay. Thanks a lot, John. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.
Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, please visit our website at www.deepleadershippodcast.com or johnsrennie.com. Until next time, take care.